Okay.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Edwin. The article I'm going to show you today is called Spread of Chinese Mitten Crab in Continental Europe, Analysis of a Historical Dataset. First, I will show the picture of the crab. This is the Chinese mitten crab, and this is the specimen of the crab. You may say that, hey, Edwin, it's just a real typical crab with 2 claws, 8 legs, and with no colorful outlook. But how's it special? And then I will show you how's it special. And this is the picture code, so I chose it because I really like it. Okay, let's come to the introduction part. Herborg sinensis, which we call Chinese mitten crab, and its native range is south from Hong Kong and north to the North Korea. And they live in fresh waters in Asia. And it's an omnivore animal, which means the crabs eat anything that they can eat. For example, plants, animals that body, even a smaller crab. And it's a migration. It have a migration and behavior. And then I'll show you the migration of the crab. First, here comes an adult crab, and adult crabs mate in late summer at the estuary, which the place river and sea exchange. Then after they mate, the females will move into the more marine parts and release their larvae. Remember, larvae for crabs, but not laying eggs. Okay. Then the larvae will develop of 6 pelagic stage for 90 days, and the pelagic state means the larvae will move through the water flow, but not move by themselves. And the crabs grow into a juvenile crab. They will settle on the seabed or riverbed and start migrate upstream and keep going. And when they grow and reach the sexual maturity barriers, and they return to the estuary for reproduction. And sexual maturity means they are big enough to reproduction. And they go back to the estuary and back again and release larvae. It becomes a cycle. Then, how does the crab in Asia enter Europe? When the larvae is in the pelagic stage, and they will carried by ships ballast water. What does ballast water mean? When a big ship, they carry nothing, no goods, no oils. The ship has to pump in lots of water to keep their weight while they are to become more stable while they are sailing in the sea. And by the ballast water, the crab spread from Asia to Europe and becoming an invasive species in hydro ecosystem of Europe. And then I will talk about the impacts of the invasive crabs. They will bring negative impacts to the recreational and commercial fishing. And what is recreational fishing? Which means people fish for fun. And the crab will cause loss of bait. When people drop a bait in sea, they hope to get a fish, but the crab will take away your bait, and which makes people sad. And commercial fishing means people fish for money, and the crabs will damage to the local commercial shrimp tours and cause the net damage. And second, they will compete for resources with the local species. Then here comes an example. They will threaten the native crayfish in Britain, and this is the crayfish. They will compete for food and the habitat selection But the mitten crabs have a large size than the crayfish and aggressive behavior, which means they like to fight. So it caused a big damage to the population of the crayfish in their original habitat. Here comes the materials and methods. Since the article analyzes the maturity, but not doing experiments. So they quantify the spirit characteristic of the crabs during two invasive events in North Europe and South France. And they tried to digitizing information from the literature, and they measure the total length of river which occupied from the estuary to the furthest upstream each year by a software. Yes. And to describe the life history characteristic of the crabs, they collect size distribution data from the crabs population over several years. And to classify small and large specimens, the fishermen use bottom trawls, gill nets, and gill buckets to catch the crabs. And a large number of small specimens was collected from the banks, and a less large specimen. And to assess the much migratory behavior, the people drop some different types of traps to catch the crabs, and during their migration to find out how's the cycle of their migration. Here comes the result. And first I'll talk about the spread between countries. And here is the timetable. I think it's really boring, so I put it into a map. First, the River Wilson, and the first record of the crab was found in River Wilson in 1912. And 2 years later, a river nearby, the River Elbe, was also found. Then the crabs was spread to Denmark in 1927, and they spread through the Baltic Sea in 1927 too. Then the research in France was found in 1930, and in the Netherlands in 1931, and the Belgium in 1933, and also the crabs spread through the Baltic Sea was arrived at Finland and Russia in 1933. Then I'm going to talk about the spread between water column in Europe. Here comes another timetable. It's also boring too. So I put in the map again. Since the source is the River Wilson and River Elbe, and the crab goes to Prague in 1932, and go upstream the Rhine River in 1932 again, and goes to spread to River Oder 1934, and spread to the harbor in France by 1943, and another 2 rivers in France in 1954, and some artificial lagoon in the Girardin River in 1959, and it shows the crab spread upstream in Europe. By crabs caught along the Wilson and Elbe, if we find the average carapace length of the estuaries to upstream is they increase 3 millimeters per 100 kilometers. Carapace means the their shell without the legs. Here is the graph, and the x-axis is the length, and the y-axis is the length from the estuary. By using the downstream marking experiment, we found their migration speed is 11.5 kilometers per day, which means they can cover large distance in a really short time. Here comes the discussion time. The results by showing a similar pattern and in length and river colonized in southern France and northern Europe. We found that the northern Europe spread really more faster than the southern one, and it shows the differences between the differences in structure of two river systems. In northern Europe, it has a more intensive system, which means they have an intense network of tributary, which means they can link each other river more better. And in southern France, they have the river is not that intensive, so and also a natural barrier, which cause worse linking to other rivers. And the size frequency distribution of crabs in the Elbe estuary over the year shows their life cycle. In the beginning of the year, a large and small cohorts was seen. The small one, of course, the newborns, and the large one is the females which survive after mating. And the size reduction of juvenile cohorts from March to April shows the peak upstream migration period, which means the grown up, the teenage one starts migrates to the upstream. And from May, year 1 crab stays in the estuary, and year 2 cohorts start go
in 20
upstream.
seconds.
Okay.
Go to conclusion directly.
Okay. The same pattern from the Britain and the San Francisco Bay shows that the crab has a really potential of invasion. Yeah. And it causes a really serious ecological impact. So now we have to quantify the impacts that to let more people know the serious issue, and we have to assess the threats to biodiversity, which we have to stop it or make it slow down, and we have to inquire for management of the problem. So we have to cause less damage to the environment. That's all of my presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Q&A now. David. Peter. Linda. Starting with David.
Oh, sorry. Results. Which one? The map?
A slide you say something similar yesterday. Day 1.
Oh, you mean this one?
No,
Which one?
Which one? This one is the spread through the country, and one through the water column. Which one? Water column. Okay. This one? This one?
What's your question? I'll come back to you later. Who's on?
Oh, the same one. Okay.
I can't see the record, so why it can
you know, crabs release lots of larvae each time, and and they can really compete with the local species, and they can just, that's like a war. They occupy the coast and arrive here. They just Can you repeat your question again? I'm not sure.
How they spread?
Okay. I got your point. Also asked how they spread. Okay. From the first record in Europe, in the estuary of Elbe or Wilson, they start spread through upstream, right? I've mentioned that. And there are another tributaries, which means a smaller river links with the main river, and they comes to another place, and they spread to then they start spread to other countries and other rivers.
Okay. Next is Peter.
Why you did this research?
Why? I mean, Peter asked why I do this research. Because it's a serious issue in Europe.
What is?
The crab, the invasion of crab.
Is that your question? Huh?
They destroy the local species, so it's a serious issue.
Linda.
Page 22.
22, okay.
This kind of crab lives in the fresh water. This kind of crab lives in the fresh water. Alright.
Can you
Repeat your question
a bit
again.
louder, please?
This kind of crab lives in the fresh water, as you see.
Yeah.
But why they can be found in the Baltic Sea?
As Linda said, as I mentioned that the crabs live in fresh water, but how can they spread through the Baltic Sea? I think I drop a one on here. Yeah, I think because as I've mentioned that the female crabs will move to a little bit marine parts from the estuary, which means they can. And there's rivers in the land, so they're not swimming through the mitten, the mid line of the river, but through the coast. The coast is the exchange part of seawater and fresh water. Yes.
Okay. David.
In one of your results, I saw you say that maybe southern part of Europe spread speed is faster than northern side. I don't know. One result shows.
Discussion. I mentioned that the crabs spread more faster in northern Europe than South France. Yeah. And what's your question? Why? Because in North Europe they have a more intensive river system, which means maybe a main river like Elbe or Wilson, they have lots of small river linking with it, and this small river links with other main river, and which means the crabs can spread through these small rivers to the other main rivers, and it spread more faster. and the system is not that intensive in southern France, so it spread not that fast.
One volunteer question. Any? I need some time. So who hasn't asked? Steven. Okay. Steven and Ariel. Okay.
You mentioned that the distribution of the crab in Asia is from Hong Kong to North Korea.
Yeah,
But why can you show slide 22?
22.
But why in Europe they can go to Russia?
They
The most north side is Russia.
here's how, and there's also water exchange here, and the crabs spread through the coast of Baltic Sea and spread into Russia.
Yes, I mean the
Latitude.
difference.
Difference.
That is much colder.
The crab is strong. they can
They can adapt.
so they can adapt, because even the northern part of Europe is much more cold than their original habitat in Asia. So they can
Adapt.
they can adapt here and they can adapt.
Okay, I have to
Much
stop
more.
here. I think you haven't really understood this question, so you ask it again later. Ariel, what's your question?
How do you know the crab is in the river? You just go there to see if there has a crab, or you use
So I think
how do you get a crab?
not me. The article is about the analysis of historical data set, which means the author didn't catch the crab and do the experiment by themselves, and they read the paper, the records, the local people, they get the crab, but not they goes to the river and catch by themselves. They just read and analyze.
Okay, my turn. I have to do it quick. Awesome. Okay. So I think the good part of his presentation is he speak very loudly, okay, very clearly, and he also look at the audience from time to time, so the stage performance is good. And also I can see your effort that you try to use your own maps to orient the audience. However, I also need to point out that the problem with these maps is with this adaptation, 改编 is first of all you don't see any rivers. Apparently rivers are crucial for the spreading of mitten crabs. So and you can see in the original paper. Oh, there's no river either. That's not ideal. But and another issue with your map is it sounds as if you have only 6 or 7 points, right? Because you only put the location. But actually, the historical literature has much more than that. You can see these dots. These dots are the location where eyewitnesses have seen the crabs in the past. So I think this still needs to be shown. But your map is still good. So I would say you can give us you can do this quickly, probably with less animation. Okay, and then you can also if you are not going to talk about this long list, there's no need to show it. Okay, you just show this directly and then do it quickly, and maybe with some orientation with arrows. For example, from here to here to here to here with arrows. You see? Okay, good. And then that's the first thing. And another thing is your discussion. Your discussion is really good to see that you prepare so many, but that's a little bit too much. Yeah, you have to condense. I know you probably have extract the most essential information, but you still need to have condense. You can see you have 3, 4. Okay, that's a remove. Okay. Okay, these are removed. But anyway, you need to condense, and then, for example, you consider the question they asked. Apparently, the most critical information is why expressed so quickly in Northern Europe and less quickly in France. So you probably should look for some maps which shows you the river system. Okay, and then regarding your conclusion, please remember that this all looks like the information for policymaker. Okay, in the next you should do what? But conclusion is a reiteration. You need to repeat what has been found in this study. So you have to repeat shortly. So when and how fast, etc. Based on the data. Okay, that would be a real conclusion of this study. Okay, and then another general information is my request that you please make your fonts larger. Yeah. Okay. And then it's also nice to see that you try to explain all difficult terms, but this also squeeze your time to present your discussion. And some terms are actually not that difficult after so many talks. For example, sexual maturation, I'm sure everybody now knows after so many talks, several talks about mating behavior, so you don't need to explain that. Okay. But for example, other words like a ballast to water, it would be better to show with the image. And then, following Peter's talk, please add a goal of this study. The goal, the ends, the purpose. Okay, the purpose of this study, because I don't see it there. Okay, so let's thank Edwin.